Welcome back here to Mountain Connections. It's now time for one of my favorite segments. It's Tech Tips with Nexus ITC. I have CEO, cybersecurity guru, and chief Earl Foote in with me. How are you doing today, Earl?
I'm doing great, Diego. Thank you so much for having me on.
Always a pleasure to see you, man. So today we're going to be talking about some co-working office spaces, which has been kind of a big trend over the last few years. There's been dozens of them pop up all over the Salt Lake Valley, and I think even a few here in Park City as well. So what's the big deal with them? What are they all about?
Sure. So co-working space, I think, is really, it's a really great trend, and we're seeing it happen worldwide, not just here locally, but particularly we're seeing a lot of co-working spaces open up, in the Utah, in the downtown Salt Lake area, there's some massive advantages to those, particularly for smaller organizations and startup organizations. It can instantly give you a community, other entrepreneurs who are working at winning every single day, that are around you. It can, a lot of those co-working spaces are hosting events constantly that are helping improve personal and professional development opportunities for, up and comers and startups and entrepreneurs. There's some really cool things with co-working space.
So the networking aspect alone is really kind of cool as well. You're around, as you said, a bunch of other young entrepreneurs who are as driven and trying maybe to get their own startup off the ground as well. So you can kind of bounce ideas off each other. I've been into one co-working space, the Hive downtown, and that was really interesting to go into just to see how many different industries kind of were at play in that single office space, but also to see how people were really communicating and working with each other in that space as well. You got people from kind of the tech side and maybe even people from product development in another company that are kind of talking and bouncing ideas off each other and learning a lot from each other as well.
Totally, yeah, and that's the thing is they seem to create these communities where it's totally okay to go interrupt your neighbor and ask them for some ideas, right? if they have a specialty about, right? And you're a small startup, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people, and you don't necessarily have that expertise on your team, you can bounce some ideas off them, and they'll take the time to to give you some ideas. Really, they're very cool spaces, and even for more mature companies, we use co-working spaces.
Excellent.
So I have subscriptions because I can drop into office spaces all over the state or all over the world, no matter where I'm at, and have a desk to sit at and get some work done.
That's
right?
Excellent.
Now, from an IT perspective,
I was going to say that there is a side of this that we need to talk about from the IT security side, and maybe some of the risk that this poses, right?
Absolutely. So, from an IT security perspective, there's definitely some considerations that you need to have when you're in a co-working space. Generally, in a co-working space, you're on a public Wi-Fi connection, or if you're connecting, it's a shared connection among all of the businesses in that co-working space. Now, some co-working spaces will provide private offices with private connections and things like that. But you do have to be cognizant that you're on a shared connection, which poses a definite security risk to you.
Absolutely.
And in fact, in most scenarios for organizations who are dealing with government compliance regulations, they can't
even be on a shared network.
Yeah, they can't be compliant in a co-working space. They can't be compliant with computers that are out in the open, that are available for anybody who wants to walk by and either steal them or try to hack them or get on them. And certainly on a shared connection, they can't be compliant. But just the fact that you are connected to a shared network exposes you to a lot of risk. If somebody else on that network happens to get, and we've talked about ransomware or malwares on these segments, if somebody happens to get a ransomware that has a worm in the payload, which will seek for other computers and then infect those computers, you can be doing everything that you feel is correct and right, but some bozo down the hallway gets gets a ransomware. And that
because
ransomware,
you're on the shared network.
Yeah, that ransomware infects your computer, and then you've got a massive problem to deal with.
Major problem. And with that shared network, you could spread like wildfire, really. I mean, it'll go from computer to computer within that office space so fast before you even realize that it's happening to you.
Seconds or minutes.
And as you said, that's kind of the problem with the co-working spaces. With maybe in your own office, you can set some standards, policies, or norms on how to regulate computer use and stuff like that with your own employees, but you can't do that across across the board in a co-working space. You can't trust that everyone is maybe as compliant as you are, or as maybe even as knowledgeable as you are as computer safety and IT safety, right?
Absolutely not. So there's some definite things I would recommend.
What should people do?
Yeah, so as I said, as an IT professional and a cybersecurity guru, I drop into co-working spaces.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you have adequate endpoint protection. So a really good antivirus, anti-malware solution, preferably something that has anti-ransomware built into it. You need to make sure that you have a firewall, a software firewall on your. Generally, it's going to be a laptop that people are carrying into a co-worker space, right? Maybe a tablet, but have a firewall. If you're not using the firewall built into the operating system, then have a good quality, reputable third-party firewall that's well known, right?
Excellent.
And third, if you do need to access any sort of corporate data or anything like that, use a VPN.
I was going to ask if a VPN is smart to have that encryption in your computer as well. That changes everything, right?
Yeah. And you mentioned encryption. You can even go one step further and encrypt your hard drive. But then absolutely have a VPN connection. If you have some cloud resources, that are in a server out in a data center or something like that, be using a VPN to access those. Or if you're accessing a home office, use a VPN so that all the traffic between you and that home office or that cloud, is encrypted and is secure.
And for those who maybe don't know what a VPN is, can we explain what that is and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. A VPN is an acronym that stands for Virtual Private Network. It is a secure connection that encrypts the data from an endpoint to where it's going to connect
where it's
to.
Communicating.
Yeah, and generally when you're on a laptop, that's going to be a little piece of software. A lot of operating systems have a VPN connector built into them. A lot of VPN aggregators or firewalls that might be at your corporate office or at a data center that you would connect to have their own proprietary VPN connectors as well. And sometimes those are more secure. So if you do have a proprietary VPN connector, we'd recommend you use those.
And they're really affordable actually as well. So to implement that into your total security is going to be something that's just going to benefit you as a whole. What else can people do maybe to protect themselves in these co-working spaces besides the encryption, besides the VPN and everything else?
I think if you're going to walk away from your computer at any time in a co-working space, make sure you lock it down. If you're going to walk away from it for a period of time and you're not in an office that you can lock, then take your computer with you, right? If you're walking away for a lunch meeting for an hour, I probably wouldn't leave your computer sitting there.
Absolutely.
Because co-working spaces, while oftentimes there's somebody, at the front desk, somebody can still walk in off the street and just grab stuff. And it's happened. We know of co-working spaces.
Wow.
We have a lot of co-working spaces that are clients, really great organizations. But we know of situations where people walked in off the street and grabbed laptops off of empty desks.
So be mindful of that. I mean, there are some great benefits, as you said, the access to having a great, safe and sound, office space anywhere that you're traveling. If you need to get some work done on the road, that's great. A great place to do some networking as well, but also you have to be aware of some of the potential IT risks as well as some of the personal risks that may happen when working in these co-working spaces. Where can people learn a little bit more about Nexus ITC and get some more great tech tips from you guys?
Yeah, nexusitc.net or 435-487-9099.
Excellent. Earl, always a pleasure
Diego,
speaking to you, man. You always have some great tips. Thanks again. Be sure and check them out again at nexusitc.net. If you need any expertise in the realm of IT or cybersecurity, they are the people that you're going to want to call. Earl will have an answer to any one of your questions. We'll be right back with much more right here on Mountain Connections. Don't go anywhere.